Good morning. Hope you're having a wonderful day. So I've got a bunch of stuff I need to get done today. So I'm going to start out here in the garden just because it's still a little cooler, even though it's a little later in the morning than I really wanted to get started at. But it needs to be done. So stuff like, for example, tying up some more tomato plants. They're really kind of getting out of control here. This one in particular is doing what some of the other ones were doing, which is kind of growing down towards the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and get that one all tied up. That's really the main one when it comes to the tomatoes. Now, what I really wanted to talk about today, though, was my wild garden. So over the last few months now, we've had zero time to really focus on anything other than work. I've mentioned it a few times now. I'll mention it again. We've been working multiple jobs, trying to save money so we can someday buy some property. Now, because of that, again, we've had no time to really focus our efforts to the garden area here. One of the things that, of course, has been really affected has been the pruning. Now, I've been going through and pruning the suckers and such off of our tomato plants, things of that nature. I've pruned our zucchini plant just a bit, as far as mainly just taking off a lot of the dead stems and leaves below the fruiting, but that's been about it. I really haven't pruned anything else. I haven't pruned our pepper plants at all. I haven't pruned our cucumber plants at all. And the amazing thing here, while it's probably not optimal, and I'm setting up the plants for potential disease and stuff by not allowing the maximum airflow, not to mention pruning does have the benefit of creating larger fruits. One of the things that we experienced last year was, I think, because of pruning, but the timing behind it. So last year I had quite a few plants that did amazing. They looked great. I had tomato plants that grew really big, but the problem was I really didn't get a lot of tomatoes off of them. And that goes for the cucumber as well. I pruned the cucumber plants as I had seen and read. Essentially, you have your main stem, you'll have one offshoot, which ends up being your leaf, and you have one flower. That flower, of course, turns into a cucumber. And the reasoning for doing that, again, is pretty much the same as everything else. It increases your airflow, keeps it from becoming a jumbled mess, because cucumbers turn into a jumbled mess as far as the plants are concerned. But in doing so, I only got a handful of cucumbers. I didn't get many. However, right now I have tons of blossoms. I have tons of potential cucumbers that are happening, and I've not been pruning them. Now, again, is this optimal? No. But I'm actually having better success this year so far by not pruning, which tells me there's a chance maybe I was over pruning. I'm not sure. Again, maybe it was the timing. Maybe I pruned them for too long in their growing cycle, and that it lended a hand. I'm not sure. Now, speaking of pruning, let's take a look at this squash plant. Now, earlier in the week, I made a post talking about labeling your plants, and the reason I did that is because I had no idea at the time what this plant was. I now know it is in fact a squash. Now, I don't know what type of squash, but it is in fact a squash, and this thing is getting crazy. It's grown all the way up the trellis and is now making its way back down the trellis. And I think what I'll do is, as it gets a little closer to the bag, which will only be another day or two because this thing is growing fast, I'll start having it go back up the trellis again, and we'll try to keep it contained to this one section here. We'll see what happens. So just because you can't prune everything correctly, or maybe you just don't have time to prune everything correctly, that's fine. Let it go. grow it anyway and see what you get out of it. You may end up actually getting more than you might think. You may end up actually getting a pretty decent harvest. We'll see what happens here, but I'm actually pretty hopeful and confident that I'm going to get quite a bit, because even our tomato plants are full of flowers and full of fruit that has already started to form on most of the plants. I've got brandywine tomatoes that are forming. I've got quite a few of the Romas that are forming, and even like the large cherry tomatoes. Now, let me just throw this out here real quick before we get any hate on this. I am not saying that you shouldn't prune. I'm not saying that pruning is not necessary. I'm not saying that pruning is going to make your plants worse or anything of that structure, or again, that you don't have to do it. What I'm saying though is, if you are indeed limited like we are on your time and it gets away from you, don't let that discourage you. Just keep going through it, and your next go around, maybe try to do a little bit better with your planning. Maybe try to set up systems that are a little more automated and allow that to help you with the time you do have in your garden. So the whole point of all of this, I know it's a quick video, but that's okay. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of time out here today. If your garden is getting wild, then it's just going to be a wild garden. That's okay. Let it go wild. Do what you can for it. Prune where you can. Give it the water that it needs. Fertilize it, and just care for it the best that you can. At the end of the day, these plants want to live. These plants are going to try to produce fruit. That's their purpose. That's what they do. You're just there to kind of help them along. They're going to grow. All right, so that's going to do it for us today in our, well, wild backyard here. Again, thank you for following us on this journey and learning how to garden, and learning the skills necessary to reach our goal of homesteading, and just overall thank you. So that'll do it for us today. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.